I have not put together a presentation today, and so you're just going to get me talking for the next 10 minutes or so. And I just thought about what I could talk to you about that I had time to prepare today. And I think what I came up with was just a reflection and some lessons learned over what's been going on really over the last 4 or 5 months, 6 months maybe, since we kind of have gone into this pandemic. And more importantly than what we, what's happened is what we can take out of this going forward for everybody. I have worked in HR now for probably, this is going to shock all of you, for probably about 3 decades. And I know I don't look that old, but it's probably been about 3 decades. And I think never, ever in my HR career have we experienced such a period of time that we are going through now. And if I'm honest, I never, ever want to go through this again either. And we are dealing with some of the most trickiest issues that I've ever had to deal with. And my background is the police, and I think even in my 20 years in the police, I've never had to deal with some of the issues that I'm dealing with at the moment. And these issues are tricky because they're extremely emotional, and we are taking away people's jobs from them. We are reducing their pay from them. It's affecting their lifestyles. We're reducing their hours. We're changing the way that they work. And these are, some really emotive things and really emotional things that we're doing. And we're supporting businesses at the moment and having to make some really, really difficult business decisions. Many of them are family businesses. I'd say probably about 90% of my clients are family businesses. And these are businesses that never, ever did they imagine they'd have to make some of these tough decisions about their workforce. And these are things that, they are causing massive disruption and emotional upheaval to people's lives. But I think if businesses don't make these changes, they're not going to be in this position to be fitter and stronger going forward. And so these business owners are going to, they do need to take action now in order to survive. And I think most of you on this call probably don't employ staff, but you probably work with businesses who do. So I thought some of these also might just be interesting and helpful for you as well. So I think the first thing is looking at documentation, HR documentation. And it's certainly been for myself and my team a lot easier to work with businesses and to manage processes with businesses that have had the correct HR documentation in place. So they've had contracts of employment in place, they've had a staff handbook, or they've had HR processes in place. Now, it doesn't mean we haven't been able to do things with businesses that haven't, but it's certainly been easier where it has. But that also leads on to making sure that as we go into the new normal world, the next world that we're going to be heading into now, is to make sure your contracts are actually fit for that world as well. So whatever you had before COVID, making sure that they are fit for purpose for your new business going forwards. So that would be my first, I think, lesson or piece of advice to give is check your contracts, check they're still fit for purpose, and check they give you the flexibility, your business, the flexibility and the agility that it needs to go forward into the new world. Secondly, business structure. We are working with a lot of clients at the moment who are making redundancies and restructuring programs. And they're not necessarily doing it just because of COVID, but they're doing it as almost like an indirect result of COVID. And by that, I mean that they are contacting us and saying, well, we know that the structure of our business was not right before COVID, but we were so busy actually running the business, we haven't really had time to do anything about it. But what this pandemic has done is given business owners maybe a little bit of downtime, a little bit of time to reflect, and has made them see that actually they do need to change the structure of the business going forward. And especially if they're going to have a business to survive to go forward. So businesses are going to have to be fitter, they're going to have to be leaner, they're going to have to be more effective in their structure going forward. Unfortunately, what we might be seeing is even the most healthiest of companies having to make redundancies. So I think that would be my second piece of advice is just having a look at the structure of your business and whether it's fit for purpose going forwards. Contingency planning, it's been interesting to see, how quickly businesses cope with the lockdown and all the big challenges and the changes that they've had to make, and how the businesses are going to work with that over the next few months going forwards. It's, as I said about the structure, businesses are going to have to be really flexible and agile to go forwards. And I've also seen businesses that have had to change their supply chains because maybe the supply chains have let them down. And it's going to, I think what's been really interesting is it's going to be the small businesses that are actually going to survive and thrive and do quite well. And it's the bigger businesses that we're seeing that are actually not going to survive because they've perhaps been slow to respond or they've been unresponsive during this time. So I think we're going to see a lot of the smaller businesses really kind of picking up and really doing well out of this. That leads me on to people. So the people in your business, I suppose the question is, have you got the right people in your business and how have they been during this time? All businesses have a mix of employees. Some are complete stars, really high performers. Some are consistent, but consistent, reliable workers are also good. Every business needs them. And we've got those that are complete drain to the business, as I call them, the organisational terrorists. Those that take up a disproportionate amount of management time and always seem to be having issues or always seem to be having time spent on them. And really, I suppose it's that businesses going forward are not going to be able to, are not going to want to put up with these type of people in their business anymore. And there's no reason why you should do either. So I think it's been interesting in times in this crisis of how people have reacted to you and your business and in your business and around you. Have they really been supportive and really kind of helping your business survive and go forward? Or have they just not been there and just been kind of absent or really not helpful, inflexible, not really kind of going forward with your business? So I think another piece of advice is going forward is that, making sure you have the right people in your business to take forward with you, that you want in your business with you. And that leads me on to the skills in your business. Have your people got the right skills in your business, and are they going to have the right skills in your business going forwards into the new world? I think one big key thing that we've seen that the pandemic has taught us is that recruiting for skills such as flexibility, for change, for agility, for attitude, for work ethic, for commitment, these are all going to be the key skills that businesses are going to need to recruit for going forward. So I've always said, and I say to my clients, you can teach somebody to operate a piece of equipment, or you can teach them to follow a process, but you will never teach work ethic. You will never tell somebody how to have a work ethic. They're either going to have it or they haven't got it. And I think for the businesses now going forwards, people are going to need to recruit on work ethic and flexibility and all those type of skills. So that would be the next thing that I would advise. Communication's been a really big one as well. How businesses have communicated throughout the pandemic, not just with their staff, but also with their customers. A lot of businesses went from working in an office to working at home. And that was a really big change for a lot of businesses. So that was in terms of communicating with your staff, but also communicating with your customers. So have a look back on how well did you do that? How well did your business communicate with its customers? Did you keep in touch with your customers? Were you there saying, look, we're still here. We're still here to help you, to provide whatever it is you provide. But also, we're also here to help, to give you any support you may need. And were you there to do that? Equally, how well did you help your staff? How well did you communicate with your staff, whether they were working from home or whether they were on furlough? Did you keep in touch with them on a regular basis and find out how they were? A lot of people's mental health have suffered in this time. And even people who thought they were resilient before this, they've suffered quite a lot in this time. So that would be one of my big things as well. I think we've all had to get really good at communicating via Zoom, haven't we, or whatever video conferencing you've used. And that's been really interesting as well, is learning how to do that. Quite early on into the lockdown, and learning how to do processes on Zoom, I had to dismiss somebody, unfortunately, on Zoom. And the gentleman in question didn't have a profile picture on he didn't have his camera on because he didn't have a camera. And therefore, his kind of profile picture was a picture of a Smurf. And I had to dismiss a picture of a Smurf, which was quite a challenge, to say the least. So, we've all had to adapt to the way that we've communicated with people. Home working and work-life balance. So I know I've seen certainly, even before the pandemic, is workers really wanting to do a lot more home working, and a lot of business owners fighting against workers wanting to do home working. And it's interesting now that that we've actually got to a home working situation almost by default. We've been thrown at it, and business owners have had to make it work, whereas they really fought against it. So it's going to be interesting to see, how that goes forward. I've certainly had a lot of clients, staff who are fighting now to get back to work. They no longer want to do home working because they felt isolated. They've not felt part of a team, and they want to get back to being part of a team and being in an office. But equally, I've got clients, staff who want to carry on doing it. So that's going to be interesting as well. And it's also caused issues with the boundaries between homework and being at home and working have caused as well, where people have had that blurring kind of either work too much or at inappropriate times. So it's just being very aware of that in the future, not just for your staff, but for yourself as well. I found myself working incredibly long hours over the last few months because I've not really known when that boundary has stopped and started. So I think that's very important to be aware of as well. And just not your staff or your people who you work with, your support network, they're not always present with you physically, but people are still there. So be very conscious to make that effort to engage with people, communicate, and again, ask them if they're okay. Just wanted to end with two things, really, just to make people aware of. There's a lot of business support out there. I know there's a small category of people that have probably been missed out of the business support that's been available from the government, but there still is a lot there that continues to be made available. That obviously includes the furlough scheme and the flexible furlough scheme. And only today, I've just been talking to colleagues of some very good people I know at Worcestershire Business Central that I do a lot of work with about a new scheme that's being opened. It's going to be available, or some of the funding will be available from the 1st of September. But it's called Here to Help Business Support. And that's going to be available for Worcestershire businesses. If you go onto their website, on the worcestershire.gov website, there's a lot of information about it on sustain and growth and adapt and develop. And it's not just funding, although there is going to be a £3 million programme altogether. It's not just about giving people money, but it's also about webinars and training and other things that can help businesses as well, not just in terms of giving money away, but there is grants as well. And I believe it's up to 3K, the grants. The other thing, just a reminder for those that do have any staff who are involved in furlough, is that obviously from Saturday, it was paying the national insurance and pension contributions. That's roughly about 5% for each employee. And also from Saturday, shielding was paused, and those that have been shielding have been able to return to work where they can't work at home. So if you yourself are in that situation, or if you've got people around you in that situation, that's going to be really difficult for people to return to the workplace after they've been shielding. And some have been shielding for up to 4 months, 5 months. So that's going to be a really big step for them to return to the workplace. So just think about, if you need any support on that, please don't hesitate to give me a shout, because that's going to be a difficult transition for many people, coming back out of an environment that's been very protective to going back out now into the world. So I know even if you don't employ people, which many of you don't, hopefully that's been just some lessons that I've picked up from working with businesses over the last few months. And especially if we do go back into some form of second lockdown, which people are kind of muting about at the moment. whether the lessons that we've learned over the last 4 or 5 months need to quickly work on to maybe take forward into the next lockdown if we go into some form of lockdown. I hope that's been useful.